Hey there friends, Dave Paulides, Canam Missing Project, copyrighted edition for our video channel. And we're approaching 300 videos right here on this channel. And we would be humbled if you took the time to peruse around and watch them. The vast majority are all on missing people. There's a small amount on Skinwalker Ranch and a larger amount on the factual news. So, let's get right into the letters this week, and some of them are really good. It's December of 1965, and myself and two 16-year-olds have left the 10th grade behind us and are headed to the 11th. Our plan was to paddle out on Wallace Lake and then camp out for Friday night and Saturday night and return home Sunday. We paid the marina operator for 2 days boat rental, making sure he understood our car would be parked there for 2 days until we returned. Off we paddled to find our place of adventure. After an hour or so of paddling, we came upon a place where we were familiar with and stopped to make camp. The rest of the afternoon we spent gathering firewood and loading our gear, getting prepared for the night. Close to dark, we noticed that we were about to experience a summer thunderstorm. The wind was picking up, clouds were approaching, and claps of thunder were heard. Rule number 1 in the missing 411 world is you always check the weather before you leave. For a multitude of reasons, this is a good example. Nearby there was an old abandoned camp house where we began taking our gear inside. It was one room, completely empty building with windows, but no sills or glass at all. Our hope was that it didn't leak much, as we had never before been there in a rain. We became aware that this was going to be a very strong storm. All of this from out of the blue from a previously clear sky. Suddenly one of us remembered the John boat. Not wanting to have a boatload of water to get out before coming home, we rushed the 150 yards to the boat, where we turned it upside down and pulled it farther ashore so it wouldn't float off if the water level was to rise. Our 3 paddles were tossed even higher ashore. As rain began to fall, we hauled tail back to our new abode in the woods. The storm quickly became what we call in the south a lightning storm, with heavy rain falling, the wind blowing, the trees. The amount of lightning was awesome. With the storm still raging, we became tired and decided to sack it. It was really scary, not due to the storm, but rather from the spook stories we told each other. Not a good thing when you're there. Around 11 a.m. we became aware of a yellow airplane circling the sky above us. This was not odd, because I knew a little private airport nearby near our home that held flying classes in order for future pilots to get their license. The plane was especially flying low and remained aloft for a long time. At one point, I even waved to the plane to try and get an acknowledgement from it. No such luck due to the above tree canopy. Also, shortly after this incident, we heard someone making noise from the area we had paddled our boat. It was a metallic sound, and we had an aluminum boat. If someone stole it, we would be in a world of hurt. Not only we 3 kids having to pay the marina for it, but because without the boat we had no clue how to get back to the marina. We sprinted the 150 yards to where we left the boat. Imagine the shock and surprise that both groups had when we accosted the boat stealers. Before us, and our pulled up hunting knives, there was a sheriff search and rescue boat alongside of where we docked. One deputy blurted out, "You're alive." To which we replied, "What are you doing with our boat?" Before speaking to us, he said into his radio, "I found them, they're safe and well." We responded with, "Found us, we're not lost." The deputy then began to explain that along with the bad storm last night, a tornado had passed over the lake, causing one of our mothers to report us missing. That, of course, initiated a search for us. He went on to tell us that all 3 news stations were at the marina waiting to speak to us. One thing the deputy had done that gave the pit of our stomachs a jolt. Before we had gotten there, he had taken 2 of our wooden paddles and made lashed them together in a cross, and then stuck it in the soft mud on the shoreline. By the time we finally made it to the marina, all 3 stations had taken their cameras and left. Because of the answer I had received from my mother about why she didn't call the sheriff's office too, I asked my friend why his mother did not call the sheriff either. I had been given the same reply as I did, because she had known he was a Boy Scout and she thought he'd be all right. Thank you. It's a pretty weird story, and thankfully you guys were okay. Now what's interesting, just so you know, the search and rescue boat was probably a sheriff's boat, and thank God those people go out there and look for you in those harsh conditions. And 99% of all search and rescue is done by volunteers just like you and me. And they always need search and rescue people. So if you're in good health and you have the time to commit, then I encourage you to go out and become a search and rescue individual. Now, this week I get a lot of things over time, a lot of pictures, stories. This one kind of intrigued me because it was close to home. Yellowstone National Park. An individual from Europe sent it to me. I don't know how he got it. I guess a friend was vacationing. But apparently they took a picture, didn't see it in the picture. Later on, when they looked at the picture, this thing was there. So this is old Faithful Geyser. And hopefully you can see this little egg-shaped object right there. Move it a little closer for you. Right here. Right next to the sun. Individual standing right here at the bottom. And Old Faithful. Now, I don't put a lot of credence in stuff like this, because if you've never been to Old Faithful Geyser, there's always a mist in the air, especially when it's going off, but there's a lot of condensation in the air. That, coupled with taking a picture into the sun, will oftentimes cause a lens flare or a lens error that will show something in the picture that wasn't there. But I thought that one was a little different, and there's been a lot of UFOs reported around Yellowstone, so thank you, Mr. Lenny. Next story. Dear Mr. Paulides, I can condense the sighting. My incident happened on a solo day trip from Calgary via motorcycle in the summer of 2015. My friend and I stopped at a public rest area in Ghost Lake. It was a beautiful day. He was alone, sitting on a bench, taking in the scenery. While there, he found it disappointing at the litter that was strewn around the area. Let me stop here. That's one thing that bugs the heck out of me, is litter. There's no reason for people to be throwing garbage outside their window of their car. That is one thing, as a policeman, I almost never gave a break on. If I saw somebody throw something out the car, ticket. You don't need to be the smartest person in the village to understand that's a bad thing to do. Have respect for the community, have respect for the environment, don't litter. He decided to clean it up, and he did. Upon finishing, he sat down again. To his surprise, there now was a ball of light in his direct view. He was startled, and his first impression was, am I having a stroke? Am I really seeing this? He basically did not believe his eyes. He had to literally give his head a shake. He watched it as it moved slowly through the trees and eventually travel away and out of view. It was a 15-minute event. He told me the light had a 3D interior crystal lattice-like structure. He'd never heard of such a thing before and had no idea what he saw. It was more than light interaction or reflection, as it moved with purpose. I've heard a lot of orb stories. I've never heard of this 3D crystal lattice-like structure. That's a first. And I've read hundreds of them. As mankind seems to do, he has attributed it to some kind of angelic presence or ghost. It has changed his life and provided the evidence he personally needed to believe in the paranormal. He does not freely share the story, although he was interested in understanding it. He's at a loss to explain what this orb was. He seems to believe his altruistic effort to clean the area may have prompted something to contact him. If you know of other sightings of this type, would you be fascinated to learn their experiences? Well, in a previous missing person video, I believe it's the one right before this or the one before that, I read a letter from a man fishing in Lake Belyou who saw an orb. So these are pretty common. But what the real question is, what are they, where have they come from, and what are they doing here? Even on the Skinwalker Ranch segment, they had an orb fly into view. Let's see the next letter. Hey Dave, I am a recent watcher to your channel, probably within the last year or so, but my wife was one who turned me on to your efforts as she watches Missing People segments regularly. I really like your point of views and personal perspectives on the weekly news issues, and I sometimes get into the missing person segments as well, but I tend to be more of a skeptic on some of those reasonings. So, that's good. It's good to be a skeptic. Be that critical thinker. But remember, come up with your own thoughts. Don't be leaning on others for a point of view. Come up with your own. Don't be a skeptic on the facts I give you, because those are facts. And I know sometimes it rattles the brain to think, wow, this is really happening in the numbers that Dave presents. It's weird. I know that you cater to a vast open-minded audience, so that is fine, as I believe in everyone has an opinion. We all need to view each other with respect. Our world would be a better place if we respected each other's views and treated those other views with respect and didn't demean, didn't cancel, and listen to understand that point of view. Some things that I want to address about some missing persons cases as far as aliens go. Again, I look at things logically and on a skeptical level. I was a nuclear weapons specialist aboard submarines. What technology we have had since the 50s is incredible. To be able to launch a 3-stage rocket from underwater up into outer space around the globe and drop multiple warheads from there is amazing. Good thing we never had to use them. It's called deterrence. And that is another reason for having armed citizens. But that is a topic for another time. What I really want to address is that we have had many projects in the skunk works for many, many years. And again, my personal opinion is that most, if not all, the UFO sightings can be summed up in these projects. Just think how long ago we had the F-117 Nighthawk before it was released to the Air Force. Between that and the B-2 bomber, which both have amazing ways of not just stealth, but maneuverability and no sound when flying over, I've witnessed both of these. Not sure if they were in a stealth mode condition when they flew over at the time, as I've witnessed being able to hear their engines as well. I just believe there's more that the government hides than lets us know the truth. 100% true. Now, I've told you before that I've talked to many, many brilliant people. It's their opinion that we have technology 50 years in advance of what we think we as the public understand us to have. So if we have technology that's 50 years in advance, you can just imagine what that technology could do. With that being said, I know you have stated that maybe some of these aliens are evil. If that is why they mutilate cows and abduct people, looking at it as aliens from another planet, they likely would have better technology than we do. Wouldn't make sense that they would tap into our systems. If I were to go to another planet, I don't think I would feel threatened by a cow, as I would analyze by tapping their systems and seeing the type of species is the most advanced. So the other living creatures, you would look at them like you would look at your own planet. Pets, food source, animals, etc. The best way that I would see understanding living creatures on another planet would be to utilize what we have here as libraries, museums, historical societies. Break in at night. Now all that you would have to do is tap into our internet and get whatever you need to know about us and everything pertaining. I just don't believe that the evil ones have come to destroy us. What probably baffles me the most is that we have the technology to fly without any lights on our planets. So wouldn't they be able to do so as well? 2 points to that. What if they were way smarter than you think? And they know that when we see an object in the sky with no lights moving fast, we immediately think UFO. But if they put flashing lights on their craft, we'd probably think it was just an aircraft. What if they were that smart? Some might as well maybe seen than really just tap into our satellites and come out with all TV stations and tell the world that you exist and are here. Maybe they're in control of the world and we were just seeing glimpses of them, but white cattle mutilations and abducting people just doesn't add up to me personally. Let me give you a viewpoint of some people I know. Cattle mutilations. Let's use the ant farm scenario. The aliens are controlling the ant farm. The ant farm is Earth. Aliens are looking at Earth, and let's just say the cows, there's something wrong with them, and they don't know. It's like when you have a chameleon, a lizard, and you feed them little worms. Well, what if the little worms have become poisoned in some way, and they aren't giving the nutrients to the gecko? Well, then we have to find out what's wrong with the worm, or find a new worm, because we don't want to kill the gecko being the people, the worms being the cows. There's something wrong with the cows. Well, the only way the aliens can determine what's wrong with the cows is come down and test, get specimens, random testing. Might be mutilations. Mutilations in our world, it's what it appears, but in reality, maybe it's just sampling to understand what's wrong with the cows. Remember, mad cow disease? Could it be here in the U.S.? I'm sure it is. And then them abducting people. Again, the ant farm scenario. What if I know some people believe they're using us for our DNA. Other people think they're using us for our souls. Whatever they're using us for, they probably want the farm to thrive while we're here. So again, random testing taking us and analyzing body parts, etc. I really feel that some of what people are witnessing are fallen angels, as these appear to be evil in presence. Again, just my thoughts, as the Bible says that we will witness more evilness, but many will turn from truth and will be fed a lie. That God will send them a powerful delusion, for they refuse to believe in the truth. Portals to past and future intrigue me a bit as I wonder about Skinwalker Ranch. And I'm curious if our government doesn't have a tunnel and portal below where the ranch is located. If the government had the portal on the ranch, the government would have purchased the ranch from Mr. Bigelow and kept everyone off of it, right? My thought is that they have some magnetic structure like an accelerometer, like at CERN, but secretly going on underground or around that location. There are another natural means of teleporting that is going on. Many topics about magnetic poles shifting. I think of the article of the soldiers on Okinawa that you spoke about that encountered Japanese soldiers from the past. I've been to Japan, and they had many, many tunnels from World War II and such. If these U.S. soldiers saw the Japanese soldiers from the past, would the Japanese soldiers have witnessed them as well? Which would be weirder? Seeing the soldiers of the future with their advanced headgear and gadgets would probably even be spookier. I hope you're well, Dave. Thanks for all you do. I know you don't like long emails, so I tried to break it up into segments, but you can highlight as you wish. Well, it was a little long, but that's okay. It was interesting. And it was broken up in paragraphs that were readable. Some people send me a whole page and there's no paragraphs. I don't even read it. It's too hard to read, and it takes too long. So, yeah, thanks for putting together a well-crafted note. Next email. Just 2 quick notes. Thank you for sharing my 3-iron story. So remember the story about the 3-iron disappearing in the bag I read a few weeks back? And your thoughts on the incident on your platform. The responses have been very interesting. App porting will be something for me to look into. I've never heard of a phenomenon before, and it is fascinating to see other comments with similar occurrences. App porting, A-P-P-O-R-T-I-N-G. Secondly, I wanted to mention something about an old case you investigated, that of Mel Nadell. Mel was a hunter in New Mexico that was in Missing 411 The Hunted. You can watch that for free on Amazon if you have Prime, or you can watch it for free on YouTube. Watch it. Who disappeared bow hunting off of Elk Mountain back in 2009. I bring this up because I've actually been to that area where he disappeared from several years back. I was there in 2017 through 19 while hunting deer myself. At that time, I did not know of Mel's disappearance, nor was I aware of your work as an investigator. This area, Elk Mountain, and the main road in which he camped off of is one of the only 2 roads in and out of that mountain range. Besides the main Elk Mountain road, there is one other ATV road that will get you to a valley called Cowles further east and south. But unless you are in some kind of Polaris side-by-side, the road would be impassable that time of year. I say this because in my mind I think foul play, or Mel being abducted by a person or vehicle in a vehicle, would seem highly unlikely. This is not an area where an easy or fast getaway is possible. Lastly, I've been bow hunting, rifle hunting for many years, and this particular area is considered the most popular area to hunt in New Mexico's Unit 45. With 39 separate deer hunts, each with several hundred participants, and 39 or so elk hunts with several hundred participants, why hasn't anyone found anything? Guns and compound bows just don't vanish. I think he was taken by an outside force. Thank you for confirming what we say all the time. A body can deteriorate. Bones can sometimes get carried away. But footwear, belts, rifles, bows, stay forever. What happened to Mel Nadell? His wife gave a very powerful talk in our film when I interviewed her. Think about him all the time. Next email. Hey Dave, well done on your broadcast. I'm a proud villager and happy to be a member. I'd like to comment on the recent letters that talked about abductions. I recently read a publication that presented information on what may have happened to abductees, rather what may have happened to abducted persons. I agree that disappearances and abductions have been going on for quite a while, in a historical sense. I believe we have only touched upon what might be an alien agenda going back untold number of years. Given this situation, the public describes the existence of several planets inhabited by humans. People just like us, living in all intents and purposes normal Earth-like lives on an Earth-like planet. Agriculture seems the main occupation. The article states that they do not appear to know their origins and seem to be living in a less modern state, roughly similar to our time. They are unaware on how they got there, possibly believing that they are indigenous to their planet. They appear to know nothing of aliens or UFOs and may have some sort of rudimentary religion or concept of their origins. All the while, the alien overwatch is monitoring their progress. If this is true, then I suggest that these people are us. They may be transplanted abductees and their descendants of the many abductions that have happened all around us. Their memories of Earth origins have been erased. Your analysis has discovered a trend where you have identified a startling amount of disappearances of very intelligent people. Maybe these bright people were needed to create, maintain, and help progress our species on a new Earth. Why? For our own good? We have heard many times that they, our alien friends, are engaged in saving us from ourselves. As for the missing people, they are unfortunately discovered deceased. Maybe they did not have what it takes to survive the abduction process. And that has been talked about many times. Remember in Star Trek, beam me aboard, Scotty? That beaming process, that movement of a physical body from one point to another. Maybe some people can take it and maybe some people can't. I cross-checked this information on a book, Secret Journey to Planet Serpo. Long story short, it alleges that in the 60s, a group of humans were part of the Interplanetary Exchange Program, along with other alien species, forming a collaborative effort to serve and support the Greys. Efforts in their words. Efforts on their worlds. The humans that were part of the team reported that they saw and worked with other humans that were not of Earth. Is it possible that they were working alongside previously abducted cousins? Are there other humans in our galaxy? Food for thought indeed. You and your villagers' work is important. Keep it up. Well, thank you. See, I like that kind of thinking outside the box. I've been presented many times that, oh, Dave, don't you understand that there are people on other planets who are abducted from here, taken from here, and are working there? It's a theory. I can't wrap my mind around a theory that has no supporting evidence. People saying something happened is not fact. I haven't seen them sign an affidavit. There's a lot of things I haven't seen from them. Although, I will tell you this. I met an individual who claimed that he was taken by the aliens aboard this ship, and he was part of a program that decided on where people who were abducted from our planet went, to which alien agenda. I heard this person, and he said that he worked on this ship for a year and a half, 2 years, 3 years, some period of time. And he says, yeah, Dave, a lot of people don't believe me. I said, well, let's start the easy way. He goes, what do you mean? I said, well, I was a police officer. I'm a licensed private investigator. I have access to a lot of things the public doesn't have. You sign a waiver. You give me the rights to look at your Social Security history. And we'll start there. And he goes, well, what do you mean? I said, well, most people have had a job since they were 18, 22. And that history about who paid into your Social Security account is on your account. And it shows the length of employment and where you were employed. He goes, it does? I said, yeah. I said, sign it over. That time that you state you were on that ship, if there's a big blank in your work history, well, that would go to justify what you're saying is true. He goes, oh, that's great. That's great. Okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. I'll get back to you. He never got back to me. He never answered my emails. Just saying. Next email. Hey Dave, I'm busy watching older episodes of yours to catch up on some things, and I have a hypothesis about a certain aspect. I watched a few episodes of Skinwalker Ranch where they launch rockets up into the area above the triangle. The one where the laser beam shortened and bent was a good one. However, I noticed something that tells me perhaps what is occurring to some extent. Checking on Huck out here in the hallway watching me. The sequence is they launch shortly after the rocket arrives near the target. The 1.6 gigahertz frequency comes up, and a few moments later, they get an orb-like thing appearing nearby. Using my knowledge of science and science fiction, let's look at it this way. Rocket goes up, approaches a zone. The zone is shielded in a cloaked device. The device detects a nearby flyby of the rocket, but that event is incorrect, so the 1.6 gigahertz lights up. It is waiting for the proper response in order to open the portal. So a few moments go by, there's no response or proper response to the 1.6 gigahertz transmission, so it in essence turns on its ringing doorbell camera, and the orb shows up to see who is knocking on the portal and try to get it to open. That's great. Great analogy. Point of interest. So far, I've seen these guys use a software-defined radio or their spectrum analyzer to actually listen to that signal. Is it AM, FM, SSB? Is it a tone, a digital pulse? What is it? We don't know at this time. Conclusion, we need to examine what signal, if any, is on that 1.6 gigahertz. Possible danger exists if they play around transmitting signal in return. They could open the door and do not know how to close it. Other show notes. There was an episode where they ran current through the ground and measured it, and one of the lead researchers wanted to try a power flashlight with the current. His lightning alarm on his belt went off. Everyone was amazed. I wasn't. The guy that unhooked the power lead from the battery obviously drew a spark. At 4 to 5 feet away from the spark source, the detector would have had enough spark to trigger a lightning alarm. Because lightning is just a bigger spark and further away, that would be easy to test, and also the specifications of the alarm would tell you how sensitive it is. So that mystery was a waste of time. Last show note for this letter. I saw a brief cut of some other episode they quote where someone dug up the black substance of black rock under the area near the house where there was radiation, etc. Radiation there, the black rock stuff, hypothesis. The black rock was a graphite layer assisting in a reactor underground. It could be dangerous to dig into there more. If they breach or damage the graphite liners, they could have a problem they don't want. I'd send the rock off to Oak Ridge or Los Alamos for intense measurements to see if it's part of a reactor or has been. Okay, back to packing stuff up. I hope you're well in Montana. Thanks for your work. Thanks for your note. Now, I'm constantly stunned at the continuous letters I get, or emails, or show notes. Dave, get rid of those stupid letters. I think I'd rather get rid of you for the people who are sending me those notes, because you don't belong here. These letters are the cornerstone of understanding what is happening at these locations. And if you don't get it, you don't understand why we're reading them, why I want that mind of yours open and thinking and responding, then you need to leave. This isn't an entertainment channel. I hate to tell you. This is a research channel. We're trying to do research on this topic. If you're here to be entertained by missing people, I really wish you would leave. I'm reading you the stories to get you to start thinking about what is happening here. To get you thinking behind the next time I go to the mountains, I'm not going to do that. Or I'm going to be prepared by doing this. That is why. So, got some good stories for you. And the first one involves a woman. I know you don't hear about women very often. 33 years old. Named Olive Beck. B-E-C-K. And this is Olive. She was a ranch hand, farmhand. Missing September 6, 1939, 10 p.m., Fountain City, Wisconsin. That's Fountain City, Wisconsin. And their farm was about 7 miles north of Fountain City. Fountain wasn't feeling Olive was not feeling too good on September 6th, told her employer. Said, well, go into your room and rest. She went into her room. They hadn't seen her the majority of the day. So they go to the room. The room was locked. They unlock it, go in, and they find everything imaginable that belonged to Olive Beck, except the clothes she was wearing and the boots she had on were still in the room. But she's gone. Door locked. Her pocketbook, everything in cash, ID, everything there. Well, they call the sheriff in Buffalo City because there's no way for her to leave. She wasn't around. She didn't take her car. Buffalo City Sheriff started a search and rescue on September 7th. just so you have a feeling for where this is. This is Minneapolis. Fountain City's right here. Mississippi River. As I've stated many times, there have been a ton of disappearances around the Mississippi River. And I don't mean related to the water, they didn't drown. Just somehow being near that river has caused a lot of problems. So on September 8th, bloodhounds arrive. And the sheriff worked them. There were 2 of them. They tracked Olive for 5 miles in an easterly direction through mountains, hills, very rugged brush. The owners of the farm described Olive as a quiet quiet young lady for 33. She attended church regularly. Her family was from Arcadia. She was really, really good friends with the owners of the farm. They called her an outstanding worker, very reliable. Well, the bloodhounds tracked 5 miles and then they lost the scent. On September 22nd, there was another round of searches in multiple areas. They found nothing. On September 23rd, another round of searches. They found nothing. The sheriff believed that somehow Olive met someone or was picked up and transported away. Problem was she never turned up anywhere. And there was no reason for her to run away. There was no reason for her not to be upfront about whatever was happening in her life. Everyone respected and admired her greatly. So this is very near the La Crosse, Wisconsin cluster. She was never found. She went missing by a body of water, and the canines were never ever able to find her. Wisconsin has a lot of unusual disappearances. La Crosse has a ton of unusual disappearances, all related to water. What happened to Olive Beck? I wish I knew. So the next case involves a man named W.E. Pemment. P-E-M-E-N-T. Pemment. Now, Mr. Pemment was smart. This is him. 34 years old, went missing December 15th, 1935, about 2 p.m. It was a Sunday. He lived in Vancouver, Canada. He had a wife and a daughter named Betty and a son named Frederick. His employer was the British Columbia Electric Railroad in Vancouver. A really good job. He liked to hunt, and he liked to hunt alone. And he had a cabin in a place called Deep Cove. Deep Cove right here. Vancouver over here. I'm sorry, this is Burnaby. Vancouver is over in this area. This is all essentially suburban Vancouver. This area, even today, is still very, very lush and thick. And there's a cluster of disappearances in this area that I've written about. That area outside of Vancouver, and not that far out of Vancouver, probably no more than 10, 20 miles. Some of the strangest disappearances I've ever written about in Missing 411 Canada. So, he's hunting alone. Doesn't show back up at the cabin. His friends call for search and rescue. And leading the search for W.E. Pemment is his father and his brother. So his father and brother are starting to look on December 16th, and they hear 2 shots. They don't know if it came from Pemment, but they heard 2 shots in the middle of the day. On December 17th, a canine arrives on scene by the RCMP. And neighbors from that area that also owned cabins were searching. And one of those neighbors, not the canine, found Mr. Pemment 4 miles from Deep Cove into the mountains. Here's the cabin. That's where he was found. 4 miles into the mountains on a ridgeline. So, now here's where the story gets very strange. Lying near the body is Pemment's hat. No rifle, that's gone. No coat, that's gone. It's December 15th. It's a cold day. He should have had his coat. They find a compass in his pocket. And this area was searched the day before and nothing was there. The father said that his son knew this area very, very well and hunted it his whole life. And his father didn't believe that his son was lost. Now, I've been doing this for a whole lot of years, folks. And this case had more stated about the autopsy and what happened to W.E. than almost any story I've ever read. True. Because at the autopsy, they explain the circumstances of what they found with the body. First of all, the coroner, Dr. Harold Dyer, stated that he couldn't determine the cause of death. He said no bones were broken, no signs of any type of attack, human or predation. He confirmed the rifle and Mr. P.E.'s coat were missing. And he also said with the stomach contents, which I always want to know, but they're never stated. And reporters out there, you ask the coroners when was the last time these missing people ate. It's important. Well, the coroner stated that Mr. Pemment ate 2 hours before he died. A very important part of the story. He also had a small puncture wound on his forearm that couldn't be explained. And he also had a 1.5 inch square deep gash or cut on his face. A square 1.5 inch cut on his face. That's very odd. Couldn't account for either one of those. On December 31st, the local paper in Vancouver ran a big article about this and said the death will forever be a mystery. Well, they had a coroner's jury, and the jury ruled against the coroner and stated that he died of exhaustion and exposure. And the coroner stated that the verdict wasn't supported by the facts, because he stated exhaustion implies lack of food, lack of water, and he said that wasn't the case. And he said exposure could have played a role, but it wasn't the cause of death, because he ate a full meal 2 hours before he died. So first of all, where was Mr. Pemment the day before when they searched this area? Good question. This is in a cluster zone. Remember that. Canines didn't find the body. Unknown cause of death. And an important point here. They said that he was found in underbrush. You got to think this one through, folks. Why would he be in underbrush with no rifle? He wasn't hunting. He didn't have the rifle. Could he have been dropped into the underbrush? If he ate a meal 2 hours before And this father stated he knew this area very well. Why didn't he just walk back to the cabin? What's the puncture wound in the arm and the scar on the face? This one troubles me because there's enough evidence to show something very unreal happened. Now, I've talked to you before about GHB. GHB will cause you to lay there. Can't move. And if it's very cold outside or you're placed in water, you'll get hypothermic and you could die. If you're placed in water, you're going to drown. And I've told you before that missing 411, a sobering coincidence, families did secondary autopsies on their kids and they found GHB in super high concentrates in their body. Could this be what happened to Mr. Pemment? I don't know. But when I look at the other disappearances in this area, could something like this have happened to them? Sure puts a different twist on it. So, I want you to think about that case and really put your mind to it because it is unusual. W.E. Pemment, 34 years old, December 15th, 1935. He disappeared at 2 p.m. on a Sunday. Next case, Roy Belyou, 44 years old, missing February 9th, 1976. He worked at the 6 Bar Ranch, and he was a ranch hand. And the rancher was looking for a bull that was lost, and Roy said he'd go out and find it. He was accompanied by 2 ranch dogs. So, in many stories I've written about, members of the family, ranch hands, have left to go find an animal. And when they're out looking for this livestock, something happens. They disappear. Sometimes they come back. Sometimes they don't. But the livestock has disappeared. That's why they're looking for it. And then they go out into that same zone that the livestock disappeared, and they disappear. Well, Roy rides out February 9th, doesn't come back. A couple days later, the ranch starts looking for him, calls the sheriff. On February 14th, 5 days after he disappears, his horse returns, saddled with broken reins. And the horse returns with the 2 dogs, but no Roy. On February 10th, that's when a massive search started. And on February 17th, they find the body 7 days later. And they find it on the north side of a mountain called Mount Bigelow. Considering what we've talked about the last few months, I thought that's pretty coincidental. Yeah, spelled the same way too. So the sheriff takes the body to Pemment County for autopsy. He's found 200 feet down a cliff. And the theory is, and the sheriff states it at the time, that Roy must have seen the steer or the bull up on this cliff, rode up to it, horse fell, rolled over onto Roy, crushed him and killed him. Number one problem, the horse didn't show him any injuries at all, just the broken reins. And Roy hadn't gone to autopsy, but they made these statements. So the coroner comes back and says, they didn't find any injuries that could cause Roy's death. The only thing they said is maybe he had a concussion. And the coroner stated that exposure is probably what caused his death. So I read this like 5 times. If he had no injuries that caused his death, why didn't Roy get up and walk out? He was not injured, maybe a concussion. He was mobile, supposedly. He was 10 miles from his ranch. The bull was never found. The condition of the body doesn't equal death. Local reports for local consumption, as a New York detective stated, I've stated many times, this one was written to soothe the community and probably the ranch. So, the ranch is down here. This is Mount Bigelow. He's found on the other side of Bigelow, 10 miles away. A very, very strange case, to say the least. I've given you a couple of cases now where I tried to get your mind thinking. And then you go back to the letters I read in this video that I wanted your mind to open up to accept these facts as reality. Now, folks, I've just given you these couple of cases that have these facts. Do you know how many thousands of others must be identical to this but just aren't reported clearly and precisely? But in Bellew's case and on Pemment's case, they went the extra distance to tell the facts, which we don't get very often. But those are really important. Now, many jurisdictions in the United States have restricted the access to coroner's reports. Now, the person's dead. They have no expectation of privacy. So why restrict the access to the autopsy report? Especially on a missing persons where there is no prosecution, there's no crime. Why is this restricted? It bothers me. It always has bothered me. The same way that some jurisdictions restrict the access to police and sheriff's reports on missing people. Not a criminal case. Nobody's going to be prosecuted. Why not let the people have it? Why not let investigators like myself understand what happened? I think in many cases, these rural jurisdictions probably know the investigation wasn't very thorough, report wasn't very concise, wasn't well written, and they don't want to be embarrassed. Just my own humble opinion. But I don't read the cases to you. I don't read those reports because I don't want to embarrass anybody. Now, if there were mistakes made, I'm going to call them out. But as far as embarrassing anyone, not my goal, 1%. Now, a lot of sheriff's offices and state agencies have cooperated with us and given us hundreds of reports. I've got a couple of really important reports pending that I'm waiting for. Hope I get them. But I want you to understand that just because a case doesn't show stomach contents, time of death, that's another thing both of these cases didn't do. But a coroner can determine a time of death most of the time, which is important. And it would have been really important on Pemment's case because he had a full stomach. Question would have been, well, he left his cabin early in the morning on December 15th. What if the time of death was 9 a.m. on December 15th, 2 hours after he left the cabin? It'd be pretty important because the body wasn't there when they searched it the next day. These type of things are probably known by the sheriff and the coroner, but they don't want to put more intrigue into the story, and they don't want to put people in the area on alert that something unusual is happening. We've talked about this a lot as a group, in my group, and it's just a frustrating fact of our world So sometimes if I don't seem to have all of the facts and all of the clues, it's because they're not dealt to us, unfortunately. But friends, I am very fortunate to have you here, and I have gratitude for that. I'm going to leave here, and I've got some errands to run, and I'm going to do something special for somebody today, as I state I do every day. And I do. And as a villager, I hope you do as well. A shining light will come down onto you and glisten your day. It'll make you feel better to help someone. And again, if you're interested in search and rescue, you could help a lot of people by joining a search and rescue organization. They need people. In the meantime, I'm Dave Paulides. You can watch our movie, Missing 411, The Hunted, and Missing 411 on Amazon and on YouTube. You can catch my books. Don't buy my books on Amazon. You'll pay triple the price. You can buy them right here on our website. NA, like North America, NABigfootsearch.com is where to buy the books directly. That's our sister site. Our site on missing people is Canam, like Canadian American, canammissing.com. You can follow me on Truth Social at David Paulides. And you can also follow me on Twitter at Canam Missing David Paulides. In the meantime, be safe, love your family, take care of yourself, look for happiness. Paulides out.